to The Route to Success, where you hear real stories of resilience, leadership, and what it takes to rebuild when life forces you to stop. Today's episode goes deeper than usual. This is a longer conversation because the topic demands it. And I'm really excited. Just side note, I'm really excited for this conversation today because I really am looking for the positivity that Erin brings. So our guest, Erin Tracy, built a career across television, nonprofits, and a decade running restaurants while training teams and leading operations. Then everything stopped, not by choice, by force. Her body broke down. She had loss of mobility and a moment where pushing harder was no longer an option. What followed was not just recovery, it was reflection, identity shift, and rebuilding from the ground up. In this episode, you will hear how burnout actually shows up, why most people miss the signs, and what it takes to recover physically, mentally, and emotionally. Erin, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hello, thank you so much. I am very excited for this conversation too, because we have good conversations. So you always get excited.
Yes, we have great conversations, and I need your positivity today. And I will be honest, I am very just open and vulnerable. And so I think it's great that I can come to a conversation and say, Erin, I know the positivity you bring, and I'm just gonna latch onto it. Okay. So let's start with the big question. Okay. You have had a full journey, and I love that because your career path is not linear. Mine is not linear. You've worked across multiple industries, from television to nonprofits to owning restaurants. Walk us through that path and what leadership looked like in each phase.
So I started in television before I ever moved into my freshman dorm room. I knew I wanted to be in television, wanted to be a journalist since 6th grade when my English teacher started calling me Jane Pauley. And at the time, Jane Pauley wasn't on TV. Dateline wasn't a thing yet. And she was already off the Today Show. So I had to go figure out who Jane Pauley was without Google to do it. You had to actually go look her up. And was like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that. So when I stepped into it, I know I want to work in this industry. So the first opportunity that came up, it was a yes. And kind of approached all of it through those early years. It's just yes, and let's do it. And what else can I do? And really, I was going to be the next Katie Couric, and got into it and went, you know what? I'm much better at finding the stories and digging them out and managing all of the people and all of the things. And so I am a human juggler, as I like to call it. I've just transferred those skills in different ways. You know, when you're balancing 30 stories a day and 4 or 5 reporters and today's calendar, next week's calendar, the 6-month calendar in an office, you know, that's a lot of carrying to do. And so the leadership role kind of evolved with knowledge and learning, and left television to use those skills in other ways. I worked in nonprofits and advertising in some different ways, and then went back into the family business. And by that point, I was easily 20 years into work and to working with different bosses and seeing leadership both above me and below me, training it on a lot of levels when we opened the restaurant. And it was really important to me. My kids also worked in the restaurant. They started when they were about 15. And so it was really important as I looked around what they were going through, what older kids that I was seeing go through, and really wanted to make the point as the owner and the manager and operator of those stores, how do I teach a 15, 16, 17-year-old how to have a conversation with the boss? That it is okay to, come and ask questions, but there's a way to do it. There's a thing you do say to your boss, and there's things you don't say to your boss. And so, really kind of modeling those things and making a point in teaching them what a good boss, a good leader looks like, because you are preparing them for what comes next. We all have those stories of, oh, I had this boss one time, and then we can fill in a litany of blanks. We all have them. And then we sadly only have that one or two if we're really lucky and, longer careers. Obviously, you pick up a few extra the longer you're in work. You really only have stories of a great boss on a very few occasions. And that's really a sad state of where we are, but it's because we don't teach leadership. We expect leadership. And it's like, oh, it's this thing in you. It is, except it's not in everybody. Everybody didn't get a great example of leadership. They may be a great nurse or a great accountant or a great, whatever career field. They may be great at those things, but they don't necessarily know leadership. So it's really important to start really, really basic and not assume they have a high school diploma of leadership, much less, we're kind of asking them to have master's level leadership at 20 something in their second job. And that's not really fair. So being able to talk about those things and those leadership growth and being able to look back and say all of these examples of the good and the bad.
Yes. One thing I want to kind of bring up that I suspect you were hinting at and meant to, it's how to be a leader on your bad days. And what I mean by that is like, today I woke up at 4 and go back to sleep, right? So the sleep exhaustion, or the day that you start out running late because your child forgot to tell you that they needed cupcakes for the school, right? So in addition to not being taught how to lead, you're not taught how to lead through your bad days. And I think that's so important.
Well, and we're human. We're going to have them. And it's okay to show your team you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And honestly, it almost makes you more human. It's more authentic. They can't think every day is perfect in your world. So being able to show up and say, this is what I've had to juggle over here, or this is, I haven't slept a lot. And those team members, if you've empowered them and you've done the work as their leader, they can pick up for you in a lot of ways today. And not take the whole load, but go, you know what? I can actually finish that report. We can move that meeting until later in the week. I'll do it and we'll review it. And you start to get those things. And by showing up, it also then lets them speak up and be honest with you about when they're in those things. And you hope that I've had a sinus stuff all week, so I totally understand it. I was up at 4 and it was not going back to bed. And my brain's doing, it's being able to talk about those things because it may help them. It may be burnout too. Like you may be leaning into some of those because of burnout, not because of a sinus infection or not because of a cold or an allergy. And so being able to talk about them and be open about them is a huge part of that. And kids will throw a kink in a lot of schedules. I have a few kids. They have certainly thrown kinks in schedules. But you know what? Also learning that leadership and having them take responsibilities for certain things. We had a rule. I was a single mom when my kids were younger. And the rule was when you turn 12, happy birthday. That's the laundry room. Here's how to use it. And now I am no longer responsible. Is my uniform clean for whatever sport? That's not my job, nor should it be. We need them to learn those elements of leadership, and they need to see why mom needs that off her plate or why dad needs that off his plate. And they start to learn some leadership and feel empowered and feel like you see them as somewhat of a grown, whatever that thing may be. It may not be laundry, it may be something else in your house, but it's the same tool on both sides, at home and at work. You've got to show people that you trust them to be a grown-up and do their job well and be successful at it. And so when you show up as a human, they start to learn as one too. And that's a great way to set an example.
I have to say, Tracy, Erin, I looked at your last name. I have to say, Erin.
It happens all the time.
Okay. Some of the best conversations I've had with staff members is when I've sat down with them and they said to me, how are you? And I'm like, you know what? I'm having a little bit of a rough day. How are you? And by me saying that, it's opened the door for them then to have conversations with me. And I had one staff member who that led to a conversation of her mental health. And I was like, I'm so glad you brought this up because here's the deal. And we went through a whole conversation of my leadership style. And at the end of it, she's like, I'm so grateful I had this conversation with you because we worked out a whole solution that never would have happened if I hadn't known, if she hadn't had that conversation. But I will say, going back to an earlier point you made, we have all had those horrible, horrible, horrible bosses that are like the things of our nightmares. And so it does take a lot of courage to come in and talk to your boss. It really does. And remind myself of that. So, all right, let's talk about burnout. And a lot of people, I think burnout has become a throw around term. And what I loved about my conversation with you is it is based in facts, it is based in data, and this is what happened. And I love that. Because being completely honest with you, we all hit burnout. We all have those days. And you, as a single working mom and a working mom, you know what it is when we're like, we can't not stop. So you experience it in a very physical way. And many people say they are burnt out, but don't fully understand it. Can we talk about what happened to your body? And looking back, and I know this is a loaded question, did you see any early signs that you now recognize as burnout and maybe things you can share with us to look for?
Absolutely. So I 1,000% agree. We throw burnout around way too much. We assume that it's this fluffy or maybe negative, maybe not fluffy, but it's what I call one of those fun fifi words. It's this word that's kind of out there and it's those over there and we don't understand what it is. I didn't understand what it was. I would have been that person before all of this happened to me. I would never have used burnout. And in fact, I didn't. So we had restaurants. We'd been in business about a decade, family business, a couple of locations. And so I was moving in a lot of different directions and through COVID. And we were a few years after COVID. And I was in one of my restaurants. I carried around the extra large Tylenol bottle and the extra large ibuprofen bottle. Those were constants in the bag that went with me everywhere I went. There was a spare bottle just in case in the car. There was a spare bottle in each of our restaurants. Like, you don't understand the number of them that I was using. I wore lidocaine patches because I had back pain every day. It didn't matter, especially on concrete hard floors every day in restaurants. And, you're up and moving. It's not a sit down, sit at your desk type of job. It's a moving on their feet all day type of job. And so I was managing it through lots of over the counter stuff just to keep me moving, because the excuses constantly were, well, all women work with back pain. That's just normal. That's what women do. Everybody gets headaches because that's what we do. Everybody does it. So that's normal too. Everybody does this, and you give yourself those excuses. I'm going to be able to get out of this crazy madness next week when I get to. And so it was those constant moving the goalposts. If I get this manager trained at this, then suddenly all the problems are solved. And you don't account for all of those things. So being in the restaurant, I always like to make a point to really open up and be there with my employees, my new employees. I'm the trainer their first day of work, whichever of our locations they were at. So I know what they learned. I know what they saw. I'm setting the example of what's important because it's the things I stood there with you and taught you on day one. So I was on a cook line working with my folks and being there with them. And I went to turn and I couldn't make my right leg move. I could feel it. Like, I could poke my leg. I could feel my leg. So it was numb, but it wasn't numb. And I would do I think this is a mom thing. And you go gadget arms or like magic, make it work. And, we throw our go gadget magic to something. So I kept to my brain going, go gadget leg, and looking at my leg, it won't move. There's nothing I can do that will make my leg. So we're gimping and limping over, and the staff's trying to help me. Because it's my right leg, I can't drive home because I can't press the gas to drive the car. I'm not a left-footed driver, so somebody had to call my husband to come and get me because I can't get home. And so it started that dive into the medical. What's wrong? What's the problem? Why can't I feel this? And we found out I actually had compressed discs in my lower back, L4, L5, S1, all of them are crunched, and they were crunched so badly in that moment. And for a while, that it was cutting off the nerves. So my brain, literally, the reason my brain could not tell my leg to move is those compressions had literally cut off those nerves to send the words of communication. And that's a really scary thing, because where else can it happen? Now that it has, where else can it happen? And so that really led me through the medical side to find out what to do. So I was in chirotherapy and physical therapy with a doctor every single day and still trying to run my business. And you can't stand on the floors for 10 hours. We got to get this compression situation dealt with. You can't be at work. Well, restauranting isn't a business you could do from home. It's a business you have to do in the business. So that was really one of those lessons. And it was my husband who kind of looked at me and he says, you can't keep maintaining this pace. You can't keep doing all of these things. It's not going to keep working. And it was probably really brave of him to say that to me, because I'm not a person like, you tell me no, and I'm going to show you all the reasons that you're wrong.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to shove it right in your face, but I'm going to be like, see. So not a person who kind of takes stop well or no well. Not a word. He says no, and I literally laugh. It's a running joke.
I feel you. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we've been there. I'm going to put my foot down, and laughter will literally burst out of my mouth. I'm like, that is so cute that you think that. And that's who I was, that very high performer, high engager, high mover. I can juggle all the things. I'll be perfectly fine, which is why I had taken it on for so long. And I was at a conference. We had decided to close the restaurants, that it was time to move to something else. We didn't know what else. It wasn't even on the register of things to worry about. It was, I need to stop and take care of myself. So everything else needs to stop. Like that was that physical sign of stop. And so I went to a conference and there was a speaker on the stage who started talking about, was asked about her burnout. I'm like, oh, whatever. And as I sat and listened at some point in this conversation, she starts, well, it wasn't just, headaches every day. And then it was, I slept 12 hours, but I'm still exhausted. It's, my body feels like all of this energy is being burnt and I'm sitting still. I'm not doing anything. And as she kind of started talking down this list, and she says, finally, one day I was in a shower and I collapsed. I couldn't get up. The water is now run to where it's cold, and that's where somebody had found her. And it was like, oh, her shower is my cook line. And you really started to be able to, all of those examples she just strung together. I was super short with people. I pushed people away that were trying to be in my life. I snapped at people for reasons that 10 years ago I would have never, or 5 years ago, or 5 minutes after you snapped, you're like, I have no idea why I just snapped, because you realize it was something so irrelevant to being even annoyed about, much less snapping at somebody about. And those were things so out of character for me. And it was really, I walked out of that conference and I texted my husband and was like, I think I have burnout. And he was, what are you talking about? I don't know, but research Erin is now in full swing. And when I really started to dig into it and dig into the mental health side, and I need to go talk to somebody for my mental health, not just my physical health, it was just as important to have a coach or to have a therapist as it was to have a doctor and a chirotherapist. Those things are just as important to be able to function and get to some place where I can actually see myself and feel like a human again. And it took all of those things to get back there.
Yeah, I will say I've probably experienced burnout. I've definitely experienced it once, possibly twice in my life. And it is exactly what you said, snapping at people, pushing people away, those emotional, outbursts that you don't understand. And I remember sitting and reflecting and praying and thinking, why do I respond like this? Why am I snapping like this? And truly not understanding. And it wasn't until years later when I was working through a certification to become a wellness coach, which I have to say, and I suspect that you might be this kind of person. You're like, oh, I'm going to be a wellness coach, but really you do it for yourself because you want to learn how to heal yourself with the tools, right? And that's when I learned about the 7 areas of health and how you have to make sure you have a balance in each one and really prioritizing health and creating, I think the internet is calling it a softer life versus the go, go, go. You just said so many things there. So let me repeat so that people, if you're experiencing emotional outbursts and you don't understand why, like it's not that time of the month, or you aren't sleep deprived, right? Like there's a legitimate, I'm just bursting out, I don't know why. You're pushing your friends away, you're pushing family away. You're waking up exhausted. You are sitting in a chair, you can't get your mind to go. You feel like you've run a race and you're just tired. And I call it high alert, like you're on high alert all the time. Those are times to go and see a doctor, to ask for help. And Erin, I want to ask you a question, and I didn't send this one to you first, so I will apologize. This has kind of come out of the conversation, me listening to you. There's been so much lately about coming out in research about how doctors don't know as much about women's body and like perimenopause and menopause and all of that as they should. Even just childbirth, they don't take the classes that they need necessarily. That knowledge is not there. Let me say they don't take the classes. The knowledge is not there. Let's be fair. How did you advocate for yourself, and what tips can you give to somebody? Because I could see, and I hope you forgive me for saying this, and no, I'm just giving a solution. I could see somebody saying, Erin, you're just nervous, or Erin, you have anxiety, or Erin, you're just tired. And you know that none of that is true. Like, yes, you have anxiety, but it's like what I always like to tell my daughter, it's anxiety that's caused by something, not the anxiety that is a neurological anxiety, right? So how did you advocate for yourself? Can you give any tips on advocating or questions? Because I feel like that is something we all struggle with.
I think in those, so I'll go back a little bit to try to help fill in a little bit too. So I had hit several different places where I was having like extreme nausea. I couldn't eat food because just the thought of food, and I work in a restaurant, the thought of food, the look of food, extreme nausea, there's something wrong. So you go to see the gastrointestinal because there's something wrong. Or there's this, or there's that. So I had been down a lot of different roads, and it just kind of went away. See how it goes. And so I was in this constant medical side again, because I kept going to medical because that's where we go, right? Like there's something physically wrong. There's a pain, there's a problem. We go and see medical doctors. And then at the end of the cycle, and they go, we have no idea. All of your tests are normal. From, the 50 different things we just did and the several $1,000s we just spent to figure it out. And then we get to, well, maybe it's just stress. And it's that last thing. If we can't figure it out, then we'll just dump it over. And in that we just keep dumping it over, well, then it must be stress, and we don't think about it. And so I think that's where I missed a lot of the mark of, there were signs through a few years probably that it kept ending with, we don't know what's causing it, see what happens. And they were right. It would just suddenly vanish, like it would go away. And I wouldn't go and look up stress. I am somebody who does very well with stress. I've always done very well with stress. I manage a lot of stress. In fact, I thrive off it a little bit. You can't work in a newsroom for a lot of time and manage that many things and taking care of that many things that you don't kind of like, oh, and it gives you a little adrenaline rush. That's was normal to me. And so it was one of those, being able to ask those questions a lot sooner and ask about stress and ask about anxiety and do your Google deep dive or your Chat GPT, and going into those places. But it's also that conversation of, I really wish somebody had maybe said mental health before. I also don't know, and it goes back to kind of a leadership theory I work with a lot of people on too. You may not be ready to hear that you need it yet. We may be so blocked off to it. And I probably was. People may have been saying it to me, but I was so blocked off and so not ready to hear that it wasn't just my back, but it's because I was so busy. I didn't have time to hear. And what happened by, the mental side kept giving me physical health issues to try to get me to see it. And so the issues just kept getting worse and worse and worse until I was forced to listen. I was forced to pause. And again, it was in that moment at that conference, listening to that one person, I was in the uncomfortable pause. What do you do? What do I do with myself? I don't know. I never thought I would close a business. And, you're sitting in that failure of life when really it was such a blessing to be able to have it. But I was prepared in the moment to hear it. And so it's almost more advice, not to the person who's spinning in it, because you may be in the spin that you can't hear it, but to the person who's sitting outside of that you're watching the person that you love and care about. You may have said it 100 times in 100 different ways. Keep saying it, because they can't, it's not that they don't hear you, but they can't absorb it and connect where they are to what you're saying yet. They need that pause, that unforced, uncomfortable moment. And you have to help show it to them in the kindest, most patient way that you can. I mean, it really was. I think when I look back, my husband had probably told me, Erin, do you really think we need to keep doing this in the family business? He didn't work in he would help me with the family business, but it was my parents, me, my kids, we were the family business. So he would see it and he could help, and he would sometimes is this really, I mean, and so there were little kind of flares that he would try to send up. But again, quickly, no, telling me I cannot was never gonna kind of work for me. But he just kept doing it in a gentle way until it finally got to, oh, that's what he means. Now that I'm stuck here laying on my side on the couch after sitting in traction for half an hour and being in all this pain, that's what he means by, is this really what I should be doing? Because, keep the restaurants going the way they're going, or, have back surgery, which was not on the option list either. And so it took both of those things.
It did. So what are maybe 3 things, maybe 5, I don't know, that people can kind of just pay attention to think, oh, I need a break, or, oh, I think I'm approaching burnout, or, oh, I need to ask for help?
So one of the things to first notice is, how are you showing up more often than not? If you're kind of walking away going, I snapped at 2 or 3 employees and my kids twice today for things that aren't really on the list of things to snap about, because you are allowed to snap. You are human. And people need to hear that too. You are human.
Right.
You are going to snap on some occasions. But when you're seeing it more and more every day, when, and sometimes it's really hard to see your friends are all at somewhere on Facebook, and you see all of your friends here together, but you're not, and you used to be that person. It's not that they're trying to leave you out, but it is, you've maybe pushed them away, or they are so used to inviting you and you saying no because I'm too busy. When you're pushing out people that you care about to stay and work, 10, 12, 15 hours. Now, there's times that may be necessary, but when that becomes the norm, not the exception, it's those small shifts you start to notice and look back in your schedule. I had 15 meetings in the last week, and I didn't have 5 minutes for my kid, for myself,
right,
for my spouse, for my friend. And you can't see those in your schedule. That's probably signs you're pushing people away. If you're looking in your phone and you're looking at your text messages for the last 2 weeks, let's say, and again, it's all of the people you work with and little to no conversations with your peers, with you're probably messaging with your spouse pretty often and your kids fairly often,
right,
but you start to see those conversations are changing. Those are the spaces where we need to start looking. This is the early signs that we're pushing people away, and that pushing away is the road to your burnout, because that's what burnout does. It almost, and I don't know, I don't have any research to back this up, but it's almost like its own addiction. You are addicted to so it's just like if you were an alcoholic will push people away, and it'll tell your brain things that aren't real, and that burnout will do the same thing and act in much the same way. It'll keep you spiraling, if I can get words out, in the burnout, and push anybody away that's trying to give you an alternate clarity and give you those things. It's very similar in nature, different obviously, but similar. I think people may understand that addiction brain a little bit better because we've talked about it so much. So
that makes perfect sense. I get what you're saying. It's like you get so used to taking care of everything yourself. It's like, for me, I always picture myself stuck on a hamster wheel. And it's like, how do I get off of that hamster wheel? Yeah. Okay. So I'll be honest, my health collapsed like yours. So I understand where you're coming from, and that forced pause, right? And for you, it created a space to reflect. For me, we're not going to go down the road of what happened to me. We're going to talk about you. But what did you learn about yourself during that time, and how did it change how you defined success and leadership?
I think I learned a lot. I thought I was doing a lot of the right things in leadership. I thought, showing up for your people is a great thing. It's a great aspect of leadership. Showing up too much for your people is not a great thing. Showing up too much for your kids and too much for your spouse, there is too much, and there is a line. Being able to helping them means empowering them. You are doing a disservice to all of those around you when you go, I can do it faster and better. I'll just do it myself. Like that sentence alone, maybe looking back, how many times today did I say, I'll just do it myself? Or if somebody offers help and they reach out with help and, Erin, I can take that off your plate, or I can do this aspect of it. And you go, no, I'll just take care of it. It's fine. We can't let somebody open the door for us sometimes, right? And you're like, we were carrying things and you're like, no, I don't need you to hold the door open for me. I've got it all. And sometimes that's even that first step into maybe letting go of that control, because we're so used to control is hold on tighter, and the harder I hold on, but we're not really realizing that by holding on tighter, we're cutting off the circulation. We're not actually helping the circulation. And so being able to show up in those moments and start to have those things of letting these pieces and go here or go there and sit in that unforced, being in quiet, being in spaces. The team doesn't need you 24/7. Your kids don't need you 24, depending on the age of your kids. I mean, if you've got really tiny kids, they do need you a little bit more. But, there is a balance to that, and being able for them to say, and so I thought I was doing a lot of those things. But what I realized is, yes, I was doing them, and then I was taking it back. It was, no, I'll do it. I've got this, or this is how you should have done it better, right? Like that's like the ultimate, like worst sentence to give back to somebody. Right. There's nothing wrong. I use my husband in a lot of examples. My husband likes to do laundry. I hate to do laundry. And when my back was hurting, it was up on a platform and I couldn't get in. I'm only 5'2", so I couldn't actually get to the top of the washing machine. So he would do it.
I get it. Mm-hmm.
He's not tall. So yeah, I have to use a step ladder to get up to it. So he would do a lot of our laundry, especially in that burnout. He was like, I will take the laundry. And so one day I'd kind of complained. He is a left-hander. I am a right-hander. He is a boy. I am not. For those women out there, we understand what, when you ask some man in the house to clean, it's probably not. Generally, I mean, there are some super cleaners, but you know what I mean. He folds differently than I do. He's also lefty. So all of the shirts are folded backwards, at least according to me.
Right.
So I I want to see like the little logo that's on the shirt so that I know which shirt. Well, he's a lefty. So he's folding it. I don't know how he's folding it the opposite way. And then it's not maybe as tight as I would have done it. And I complained one day, like, look, like this is not how you fold a shirt. And he looked at me and he said, so you have a choice. You can do the laundry yourself, or you can live with how it's folded. I'm going to live with how it's folded. There's nothing wrong with how it's folded.
Right.
It's not how I would fold it, but it's done. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to do any step. He took it downstairs, he washed it, he dried it, he folded it. If it's a really, really good day for me, he even put it away. I didn't have to do any of it. It's done. So the same thing happens in that cycle. That's kind of that step, is recognizing I don't actually have to do it. And there's not a right or wrong. There's, yes, do I do it at what my version of 110% is? There is nothing wrong with your version of 90% and mine at 100. Like, there's nothing wrong with those. Can I live with the shirt slightly not folded in the way that I would ideally like it? Yes. And I can walk away, or I can take on the whole thing myself. And it's being able to recognize those moments. I'm going to put that thing down and give myself that space, and myself, not him the grace, myself the grace to say, it doesn't have to be my way. And that's okay.
I think what you are speaking of is so profound. And it's so true, where you have to, when people offer help, you have to take it in what they're giving to you. And one of the things I've had to learn as a leader, as a mom, as in someone who can ask for help and receive it, is the art of good enough, which is what you're talking about. You know, yes, I might have done it 10 steps farther in and more, but is it done good enough? Is anybody besides me going to notice? I learned that when I was a board chair of a coalition that we were putting together a banquet. And, you know, one girl who was helping me, she wanted to be in charge of everything down to color. And I remember looking at her and thinking, you know, Joanne is in charge of decorations and color. And we put her in charge of that because we trust her, because we love how she dresses. We love how her office is decorated. So we need to stay completely out of that lane. What we need to say is, Joanne, what do you need from us? How can we support you? But we don't need to care what color it is, right? You know, and if we ask for salmon napkins, but she brought pink, nobody's going to know.
Nobody's going to know. It's okay.
Right.
And like you said, we may go 10 steps farther in a process, but those 10 steps may be a complete waste of time.
Right.
And that's why we're spiraling, because we're spending 10 more steps in something that don't even need it, that aren't going to make any difference. And so now we've found time in your day to take a pause, to take a walk, to sit and talk to a kid, talk to a coworker, you know, any of those things. We found those spaces to do that because we don't need step X, Y, and Z. We really only needed steps 1, 2, and 3.
Right. So true. I could talk about that all day long, but I'm going to move on. Okay. You talk about people first leadership, which is interesting because normally we hear servant leadership or one of those other terms. So people first. What does that look like in practice, especially for leaders who are balancing business demands with real human needs?
So it's showing up. It's I would call it like a cousin or a sibling maybe of servant leadership, because it is showing up for our people and giving them a lot of those things from servant leadership. But that people first mindset slightly changes in the concept is, I'm going to keep the people at the center. And this is what my team right now is capable of, these people. And in growing my business, I'm not going to go look at all of these. Those things may be great. They may be wonderful. But the way we retain an employee, the way we keep keep employees, but also the way other people see us is by having great employees. Great people want to work with other great people. So we're even want to be able to bring in the best people that come to when we're ready to add that next phase. So by being there with our people and showing up with them on a personal level, on a work level, and not just talking about developing our folks, but actually training our folks in a way that's meaningful to the business. So it's you will hear people at work go, well, Sally Sue doesn't do her job right. And if Sally Sue did her job right, I'd be able to do mine. And it's because we don't understand what Sally Sue does. And so there may be a bottleneck at Sally Sue, but it's not because it's Sally Sue. It could be anybody that's in that chair. And so people first is, okay, let's have an understanding of what each other's jobs are. And not just, I'm going to talk about it on a blackboard, but we would do this in our restaurants. And it came to be something our customers loved. We would put it on our social media platforms. It is swap day. And we would do it about once a month. And every cook had to come off the cook line and be a wait staff for the day. And all of the wait staff had to go and work on the cook line for the day. Mm-hmm. And so we understand each other's jobs. We understand why a cook is frustrated when a wait staff doesn't put something in a way that makes sense to why it's really troublesome when the wait staff keeps walking over to the cook line and asking them 50 questions and it throws the whole thing off. And then they're mad because it took an extra 10 minutes to get their food on. So we start to understand each other's jobs. And as that happens, we solve problems because now I'm the person who's always doing X, but now I understand how my X plays into all of theirs. So I'm now more motivated to do it in a way that makes sense, or I understand why I'm being asked to do things in this certain specific order, or whatever the case may be. So we solve problems before they become huge gas fires. Instead, they're just little potholes in the road and we get to keep going. And so we discover those things, but we also tend to dial down the complaining because now we understand a little bit better. And what we also do, we would find out a lot. I never want to be a cook. I never want to have to go back there as a wait staff. And they got back there for a shift and went, I actually love doing that. Can you train me on being a cook? Now, we're not doing swaps on a Saturday in the middle of dinner rush. That would be crazy. But a nice Tuesday is a great time to do those types of things. Now, not every company could do that, but there are ways inside your company with certain positions we can do that. And that's where we start to go, that's people first. We're making sure all of the people understand all of the system, not their path in the system, but how the whole system of business works. And then invest in them learning more and cross-training. And so now I've made them a much bigger impact to the business because they can talk across different sections of the business and help it grow. When the salesman goes out or the saleswoman goes out to sell product of whatever it is you have them doing, they understand why they need to fill the order form in a certain way so that counting can bill it, because ultimately they're answering to that customer when it didn't come back and it didn't match. And so they see how the whole circle fits. And so that's really that people first. But it also lends you to be able to spend time with the people in the business as the leader, because you're in those swaps and those exchanges and you're showing up and you're being authentic and they start to trust you. And so they're going to have that conversation of, I think I'm being burnt out. What do I need to do? That may be the sign the business needs to add a new team member because this person is truly run down. And you see how we're growing and all of the things that are piling on them. But you may also find that employee who maybe did like this job over there, but has voiced that they really love doing this in that swap or that exchange, however it worked. And so maybe they could pick up a little bit of that and that helps them grow. And by growing these people in these very organic ways and finding where they want to be, they're more creative, they're more engaged, call-offs are far less, bottlenecks don't happen. And so you see that growth from the inside and then the doors pounding both from customers because customers feel it. It was one of the greatest pat on the backs. People would come to the restaurant. We love the food, Erin, which, we had great food. We love the food, but we come here as often as we do because the people actually like each other. They get along. You can see they're working together. When a guest that's a regular knows the cook's name, because they do come out and they do talk to them, they see that that's kind of the point. And it just makes it's a happy space to be in. So I'll come as a customer to be in this happy space. And then they tell other people. And so the business really starts growing because guests or customers or clients all want to be working with you. But all of the best talent that's out there also wants to be working with you. So they're going to start showing up. You don't have to go through 200 applications. You're going to have referrals from your employees. And on the opposite side, an employee is going to say, no, I don't trust that person to be part of this because I know how they work. And so that's also nice too, is they're giving you red flags on those applications of somebody trying to get in so that you don't, because we all, we think we all pick great people, but sometimes people can trick us, or maybe we're in a bad day that we can't spot a flood or whatever. And so they're stating there going, yeah, it's going to be I'm just going to move that application to the no pile for you. Well, tell me why. Why are we moving them to the no pile? And then you start to see their own insight on the team. And so that's people first.
I like that. It's so funny. I had a conversation last week with a client where I said, hey, we're going to stop having these silo conversations. Like, we can't operate unless we know what everybody is doing. And it's exactly what you're saying. We don't understand why it's taking finance 3 weeks to do an MOU. So let's ask them. Let's find out. And then let's ask them how we can speed that up. Let's find these answers. Let's start talking as a group. And it does directly impact that organizational culture. And I wanted to just laugh when you said people come here not just because the food is great, but because the atmosphere is great. There was a store in Oklahoma that my daughter and I absolutely loved that we would go to. And yes, it was beautiful. Yes, they had great products. We went because the staff was so happy and so kind and would stand and ask you how you were. And so if we had a bad day, we'd be like, oh, hey, do you want to just go to that store real quick? And, and inevitably we bought something, inevitably somebody would come buy a drink from you and eat a whole meal. But that's how you attract. And that's how you get people here. Like, I just love Erin's restaurant. I want to go because I'm having a rough day. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Okay. So let's talk about one that I am very, very weak at. So I am so excited to learn from you here. One of the most powerful ways, parts of your story for me is the loss and rebuilding of a support system. And I'll be honest, I have no support system right now and I feel it. So why do people push others out during burnout? We've kind of talked about the why. But so I think now what we really need to talk about is that how can we rebuild support in a practical way? And maybe even because sometimes, and I don't know how you would agree with this, but sometimes I think burnout happens because we're in toxic situations. So as we get healthy, how do we rebuild that support system and do it in a practical, healthy way?
The rebuilding, and I'm still in this process. It's been about 2 years since my burnout situation, so I'm very much in that rebuilding phase right now. And so it's one that still kind of catches me sometimes because a lot of the advice was, well, find an activity that you like to do. I'm like, okay. So, I spend a ton of time hiking. My husband will hike a lot with me. I have not found a lot of people. They're either like the extreme hikers. I don't want to go out for 5 days on a mountain with no running water. I want to be able to move back to a shelter. I don't have to have Wi-Fi, but I do have to have at least a mattress, especially with a bad back. Like I still have bad back. Yeah, so I don't want to go quite that far, but I also don't want to walk the neighborhood either. And so, yes, I found something that's really good for me that I love and gives me mental clarity. My husband will on purpose find places for us to hike that has no cell service. And he would do that before the burnout again because he recognized that I needed a break. So he would find us places to hike with no cell service. He's like, oh, darn, they can't find you. So having that, and so stepping back out, you start to find those spaces. Are there places where you can reengage? I was always big into volunteering and community projects. So it's being able to find those groups, and it's going to be incredibly awkward at first because you don't know a ton of these people. That's why you're in your search. And so the first few times of going to whatever craft club or the walking club or the, volunteering at the food bank, it was awkward. You're like, I don't know these people and I'm outside of my comfort zone. And but we have to keep going, saying yes. I'm going to hold on one second. My screen. Saying yes in those uncomfortable moments is something we definitely need to do just to break our own habit. We're in a habit of, no, I don't have time. And now we do. We're finding our way out. We're finding our way to people, but that awkward is going to make us say no. So it's saying yes where we can at any opportunity. It's maybe even just talking to somebody in the checkout line. We all go to the grocery store at some point in the week, and we're so used to being insulated with ourselves and keeping people away that we won't talk to the cashier at the checkout line or the person who's in line in front of us or in line behind us. Even just finding a way to, oh, I didn't see that they had such and such, because you see something in their buggy. Or, I love that shirt. And even if it's, small little things is there, because we just have to get in the habit of re-engaging with people because we're so used to having those conversations in our head, because that's what burnout kept doing to us. We were having a very personal conversation. So that's probably one of those first, if you're really coming out of that burnout kind of phase and that bubble, it may even be the biggest challenge to you to speak at the grocery store. Somebody else is in the aisle looking for something just like you. You know what? How about we make it a game? I'll help you find yours. You help, something to just connect to a person, because wherever you are and whatever you're doing, we all go to the grocery store. If we maybe don't know what hobby we want to pick up yet, or what organization we want to kind of get back involved with. And maybe we're not ready for a room of 50 people for a meeting. Maybe we need those smaller spaces. Go to the coffee shop and work today, right? And by sitting at the coffee shop, again, maybe we're engaging with somebody who sits at the table next to us in even small ways. I'm not saying read their computer screen and be like, oh, that's really cool, you're researching. That may be a little weird, but oh, that muffin you ordered, what kind is that? It looks really good. Have you ever had it before? And it starts those conversations for you to start being used to just opening yourself up, because that's your problem right now. And that was the problem. I was like, I have been so insulated and inside my own stuff. I think I don't know how to honestly start a conversation. And I'm an extrovert. So if I, as an extrovert, go, I have no idea what to say to the person beside me at a coffee shop. I don't know if you're an introvert, if you're somewhere in the middle, that's a challenge. And so starting those small steps, we don't ever want to go, I'm going to make a huge life change and, this huge thing. And it's just, those aren't practical steps. Right. So starting with the practical, what you can manage. Today I got one conversation. Cool. I'm going to do another one tomorrow. Okay. Maybe after a couple of days, hey, it's a Saturday. I'm going to go to 2 different stores. I'm going to go to the grocery store and a coffee shop today. Now that's 2 conversations, and just start your building from there.
I love those conversations. I call them wine conversations. I love those. Those are always the most fun. And that's where you learn like the coolest things.
You do.
And, the thing for me is when I get in line, unless I'm texting my dog, because a lot of times it's like, hey, I'm checking out. Is there anything else you want? Right. But other than that, put my phone away and look around. And if there's nobody behind me, read a magazine cover. That's what I do. Talk to the clerk who's checking you out. We went to a new grocery store this past Saturday, and it felt stressful in the store. I wasn't stressed, but it felt that way, right? And they were lions. And so I made it my goal to make the cashier and the bagger laugh, because I just thought, let's have some fun. Let me make you laugh. Let's make this Saturday. And you know what? We had the best time just standing there laughing. It was great.
Yeah.
And these silly conversations.
It starts to build that little bit of human connection. So when you see them next week at the grocery store or in a couple of days, you're like, oh, it's a lot less stressful today. Are you all having a good day? and you start to connect. And then after a few times, you may find out that, oh yeah, I'm 10 minutes from getting off. I'm going too. And then you may hear about an organization. It's something that may interest you. And so and that's how you build, but it's such an important moment because it helped you probably laugh too. And it helps them laugh and it gets you out of your shell. So all of those things are so important. And also in your mind can be so easy because it's like, I may never see these people again.
Exactly.
Right? So who cares? Who cares if I tried this conversation? You go, well, it didn't work there, but the next time, because it's also, we can't go, well, they didn't laugh, so I won't use that intro next time. No, it was those people. Those people didn't laugh. So now you're encouraged because they laughed back with you and you're like, yes, I appreciate that.
Exactly.
Now they can move on. Yeah.
And I will say, I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's okay to go slow in rebuilding your system. It's okay to just have one or two people. Like I have like two that I can call on, right? It's okay to keep it small. It's okay to grow slow. I think sometimes our perception is skewed by social media because we might think that somebody knows so many people. And there's a big difference in work acquaintances and friends and support system, and social media will cloud that. So it's okay if you have one or two people that are your go-tos. You don't have to have 15.
Yeah. You don't. And honestly, is coming out of that, you probably don't want 15. 15 different opinions coming at you as you're trying to refigure out yourself. Because obviously when my burnout started, whatever number of years ago, I was a different person. My kids were different ages. There's all of those things. And so you have changed so that you maybe don't know all of the different parts of yourself anymore. And so that's a huge part of that too, having that small group and building that slowly. And so you may not be those people at the grocery store that you talk to are certainly not your inner circle. You're just trying to create the habit of a conversation so that you can eventually start to go, okay, well, they don't have to be on the outer ring. Maybe they can be on an inner ring, but that's still an outer ring, right? And you're still working kind of in that kind of target area of moving people slowly to the end. But yeah, you're going to have to, I'm not saying you have to jump through a hoop to get to my inner circle, but there are certainly a very small number in the inner versus.
Yes. Yeah. I read a great book. It's called Rich Relationships by Selena So, and she describes it exactly how you are. And she actually gives each circle a name and then defines it. And she's like, just like you said, it's going to take a minute to get to my inner circle. It's going to take a minute to do this. And the way that she said, the way that you said it is so eloquently, and it helps me create a visual and understand it. And it's so nice when somebody can explain something in that way where you're like, oh, okay, I'm normal. I like their process. It makes sense. I'm going to follow it.
Yeah. And it's human. It's real.
Exactly. It comes from learned experience. Exactly. Okay, let me ask you a big question. So, especially in the world and current situation, so I don't talk about politics, so we're just going to say current situation of the world. Many people listening are in the middle of burnout, or I would even say getting close to it. They're overwhelmed, they're pushing through, and they're telling themselves it'll get better tomorrow, it'll get better next week. What are the first steps they can take today to begin recovery, ask for help, and start moving toward a healthier way of living? And I'm going to throw a bonus in there. What are ways that we can support each other? Especially like if we were friends, Erin, and I texted you and I realized, okay, she doesn't want my help. What is something I could do just to show you love maybe during a hard time?
So I'll start with the second one first, since we're kind of went from that, you were moving people to those inner circles. But also part of moving people in is us being available to those people for them to move us in. And so you may not be ready to talk about burnout, or you may not even be in burnout. I'm in burnout, so I need to start connecting. So sometimes it's even just sending a message, expecting nothing in return. If I know Sarah's in burnout and I can't tell Sara because me announcing to Sara, so Sara, because I know about burnout, because I've been there, I'm going to just go ahead and tell you you're in burnout. And that's not going to work. And you know that because you've been there. But I can send you a text that says, hey, Sara, I saw something today and it reminded me of you, thought it was funny, and leave it there. There's not a question. There's not a reply. There's not an answer. So it shows your engagement from wherever you are showing up in that space. It shows your engagement. So you're opening yourself up a little bit, but you're also no expectation because you're in burnout. You may not see that message. If you're anything like me now in how I manage some of my burnout and to keep from going there again, I make a point to leave my phone on my desk and go do something away. The ringer's off. I don't care if you it's not happening. My husband does not have to find a no cell phone zone because I'm going to leave my phone here. It's not going to go, it might go on the hike, but it'll go on airplane mode on the hike because I want to take the pictures. That's the only reason it's
Exactly.
Right. Yes. So they may not reply to you right now. And so it may get pushed down in their thing and it may show up at midnight tonight when they have a chance to look at it a little more and read it. So that is that no expectation, but it lets them know you are thinking about you. They may never respond. You may see them 3 weeks from now and they say, you know what? I saw that message you sent. I so appreciate it. I'm so sorry I didn't write you back. Didn't expect you to write me back. I just wanted you to know I was thinking about you, saw something. And so that does help because it does help show you are engaged for the second half of that question and trying to show up for folks. On the other end of that question, if you know that you're in burnout or you feel like you're moving towards burnout, if the answers from the doctors are a lot of, we have no idea why this happened, all of your tests are normal. If we're using a lot of, well, don't all women have, and then, back pain, headaches, whatever. I'm supposed to keep my schedule this full. So when we're using all of these excuses and moving those goalposts and we're starting to have those reflections, maybe I'm moving towards this. My first step in working with somebody is always to tell somebody, let's find 2 minutes. You don't have the ability right now to find an hour. You don't have the ability, you're just not there. So we need 2 minutes where the smartwatch comes off, the phone is in a different room, and you sit on a porch, you sit on your couch, you sit in your office with the door closed. You can sit in your car. One of the easiest places, I think, to find a completely empty space where you're not getting bugged, because if you're at home and you have kids all the way up through 22, we have a 20 and 22-year-old that still live here and go to college. And so they'll still knock on the door. What are you doing in there? Right? So the bathroom, not the quiet space. I tell people, do it in the car. You've gotten yourself ready. You've walked to the car. Your habit is you put your stuff down, you put your seatbelt on, your car on, and drive. Let's find 2 minutes right there. No one's around, right? No one is around. And especially to be able to do it first thing in the morning, there's 2 minutes. I'm putting the phone down. I'm not going to pay attention to my watch and, the smart notifications that we absolutely don't need. I don't even wear a watch anymore because notifications have just driven me mad.
It's too much.
And it's so distracting, and almost none of it do you actually need right now. So it gives us a false sense of urgency that isn't real. And so that's where we go, okay, what do I want for my day? What is a simple goal? I'm going to make one goal to go in and check in on an employee, not like what are you doing? But so how are you, Sara? What's the best part about what your job is right now? What do you wish you could learn? And it's a 1 minute, but I'm going to set that thought for the day, that goal for the day in those 2 minutes of what do I want today to look like? Is it just I need to breathe for a couple of seconds? Just lean my head back, maybe turn a song on because maybe that gives you clarity. I like peace and quiet for a 2 minute peace and quiet to let those things run through my head. So if that's what you need is that song right now, turn the radio on, listen to that song, and just kind of sit there. Okay, I'm going to make this a good day. How am I going to measure a good day? I'm going to talk to 2 people today. And make it a realistic measurement of wherever it is you are. for the day, and doing it in that moment really helps. If that moment's not the moment, because maybe you have to drop all the kids off at school. And so, the car's full and kids are everywhere and bouncing off the walls. We drop them off. We pull into work. We put the car in park again before we maybe get out of the car. That's our safe 2 minutes. We're not sending a text. But we're having that personal focus. What do I want for my day? Not a to-do list or a checklist. Not, I need to do Sally's cupcakes for tomorrow. I need to, it's not that. It's how am I showing up? I'm going to walk into work and I'm going to be positive and give a pat on the back to at least 3 people in the first whatever. I'm going to check in with this, whatever that thing is, to kind of set your day. And then as it goes on, finding those couple of more minutes every few days become a little easier. And after a while, you might have half an hour to yourself just to be able to think. And you'd be shocked at the end of that, how much you go, oh, I don't really need to do this, or this. I can get rid of that. And this thing on my list, I can do next week. And so you really have time to actually think through what's happening in that busy, and start to see where completely unproductive is taking up your day, and you start to find those peaceful moments.
I love that. I do the same thing. I hide in my car. I had tried hiding in my bathroom, but I had a dog who could stick her paw under the door. Mm-hmm. So I know exactly what you're saying. So what I do now, I leave my phone on my desk because my watch doesn't work without my phone. And I take my dog for a walk. And she and I will hunt for lizards, or we'll look at flowers. Well, I look at the flowers, she looks at the flowers, right? Or we find a really good patch of sunshine and she rolls in the grass and I just stand there. And people think it's crazy. I've had people tell me, oh, it's unsafe to walk your dog without your phone. I'm not hiking in the woods like you are. I'm walking in a neighborhood. My child knows where I am. The dog has an air tag on her. If, my daughter could find us if we're not home in the 20 minutes that she knows we're going to be gone, right? So give yourself that time. Take that deep breath. For me, it's the sunshine and the flowers and the laughing in the grass. Yes, I look like I'm 5 years old again, but I don't care.
But that's part of the fun too. You should be 5 years old someday. I mean,
yes.
We don't have to be whatever age we are. We have to not take ourselves so seriously. Put that down. And be 5 years old, because it's fun when you're 5. And think about all the things 5-year-olds get to do. They get to color outside the lines, and they get to roll in the grass, and they get how many playtimes between learning?
Right.
I want to be 5 again.
I do too. The other day I started the day with I have 2 dogs. One of them's 12, and he discovered sprinklers. And I don't know that he hasn't seen them before, but this was his thing, right? And I played in the sprinklers with him for like a good 15 minutes. And that started my day off better than anything could have. Right.
Yes.
And so I think what I'm hearing from you is be present, live in the moment, connect with people. Don't be embarrassed. Be yourself. Okay, so maybe I did trip and fall in front of somebody, but I had a good laugh and they had a good laugh, right? Or you know what? Maybe I did slip and fall at the grocery store, but I'm never going to see that person again, so it doesn't matter. Just let it go. Don't be so serious. Embrace the lighter side of life.
Have a little fun. You're allowed.
Yes.
Have fun. That's where the enjoyment comes.
So much. And I think as adults, I think you hit on it when you said, how many playtimes do 5-year-olds get between learning? And I will never forget, building off of you, going to my daughter's high school and talking to the teachers and saying, she is 15, she's a sophomore, she cannot do 3 hours of homework after you've had her for 8 hours because she's still a child and she needs to play. And then looking at me like I had 15 heads and telling me she's never going to get into college. She's not going to do great on the SATs, ACTs. And I said, no, she'll do better because she needs play. And I'm standing up for her. And play for a teenager looks different. And so I think what a lot of us adults forget is, and the question we need to ask is what does play look like for us? How can I give myself 30 minutes of play today?
And enjoy that. But we take ourselves so seriously. We're supposed to be this role. And my kids will tell you, and I think it's hilarious, I will embarrass the good gracious out of my kids because I just don't care that you think it's weird that I dance in the aisle at Kroger. I enjoyed the song that was playing, so I'm going to dance. And I don't care if you're embarrassed. If you don't like it, don't come. Right.
Yes.
But I'm going to have fun because we only get so many minutes of that in the day. I have to be serious far too much. I'm going to play when it's time to play.
Exactly. Okay, Erin, I want to leave you with a little thought, and it is kind of a gift. I stumbled across this YouTube channel. I can't tell you the name. I didn't pay attention to it. It's this guy. And he's in a larger city. I want to say like maybe LA or New York, right? And he will take an old school boombox, what you and I had, right? And he'll turn on a song really loud, set up his phone, and then he just starts dancing. And I'm not a good dancer. He's an okay dancer. But what makes this so amazing is the joy on his face. And then slowly but surely, one person, two people, they come and they dance with him. And when he sees that somebody's dancing with him, he makes such a big deal about them and they dance together. And I literally look for his videos because they make me laugh. So when you're in Kroger dancing, that's what you're giving people. You're giving people joy.
Yeah, having fun. It's contagious. And people want to be around them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Erin, I cannot thank you enough for this conversation today. First of all, I want to thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for sharing your story with me. And thank you especially for coming here today and allowing me to be very messy. I may not have appeared to you, may not appear to the audience, but this is me being very messy, very vulnerable, very real today with you and feeling like I sat down with a friend over a cup of coffee and really got that heart, soul food that I needed to get through the rest of my day and to also know I can ask for help. I can have fun. I can struggle with burnout and that's okay. Thank you for making it okay to be human.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I enjoy our humanness.
Yes. Yes. And Erin, last quick question. Because I know that you coach and I know that you work with people. And this is me asking. Erin didn't know I was going to ask her this. I always like to put that disclaimer out there. If people are in that odd space, that gray space, and they think I need somebody to talk to or I need some coaching, how can people reach you?
So I'm on just about everywhere, social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, and then I have a website, all Coach Erin Tracy. It's the Irish spelling of Tracy, not the English spelling of Tracy. So Treacy. And I respond to all of the comments, questions, things going on there. So when you send a message, I am the person responding to make sure that people see that they're getting a real person and connecting with me directly, because I think that's so important. But being part of that, I think it's important to talk to somebody else and know who's on the other end of this message that I'm sending out into the worlds of it's not a bot, it's me.
I love that. And if you respond to me, it's me. I respond back. It's always me. So I get that. Sometimes on my really bad days, I'll read something with my ADHD and I'm like, oh, wow. And so I'll have AI rewrite it because it makes no sense at all. I'm like, can you just make this make sense? Because I said 15 different things, but just know it is always me that you get. And I will always respond to you just like Erin. So Erin, thank you so much. We will post this out. We will share this and I will make sure in the show notes, you can see I'm tripping on my words, that would be link Erin's website because I will tell you, sitting down with Erin the first time, let me think how I can describe it. It's like sitting down in a warm little coffee shop that plays that perfect Norah Jones jazz song with no music by the fireplace, and you have the coffee that's just the right amount of sugar and cream. You know what I'm saying? That perfect cup of coffee with the friend who is just glowing like a candle because they're so excited to see you. That is what it is like to sit down with Erin. So if you're close to her now, no, she is never going to judge you. She's going to give you good practical advice and she's great at messes. And I mean, messy. You know what I meant. So I
know exactly what you mean, which is why I left because oh, yes, great at messes.
Yes. All right. Erin, thank you so much.